The Chemical Wedding of Christian Rosenkreutz, the 5th day. The night was over, and the long-awaited day had broken, when I hastily got out of bed, more because of my curiosity to know what would happen than because I had slept enough. After I had dressed, I descended the stairs as usual, but it was still too early. I found no one else in the hall, so I asked my page to take me around the castle a little and show me something unusual. As always, he did this willingly, and led me without delay down some steps beneath the ground to a great iron door, on which the following words were affixed in great copper letters. Here lies buried Venus, the fair woman who has undone many a great man in fortune, honour, blessing and prosperity. I copied this and drew it on my writing tablet. After the door was opened, the page led me by the hand through a very dark passage until we came to a small door which stood ajar. The page told me that it had first been opened yesterday, when the coffins were taken out through it, and had not yet been locked. As we entered, I beheld the most precious thing ever created by nature. This vault had no light, but that of some enormous carbuncles, and it was, as I was informed, the king's treasury. Of all the things that I saw there, the most marvellous and extraordinary was a tomb that stood in the centre, so rich that I wondered why it was not better guarded. The page answered that I should thank my planet, through whose influence I would now see some more things that no man had ever set eyes upon, beside the king's household. This tomb was triangular, having in the centre a shiny copper vessel. The rest was of pure gold and precious stones. In the vessel stood an angel who held in his arms an unknown tree, from which fruits continually fell into the vessel. As soon as they dropped in, the fruits turned to liquid and flowed from there into 3 smaller golden vessels nearby. This little altar was supported by 3 beasts, eagle, ox, and lion, all standing upon a richly decorated base. I asked my page what this might mean. Here lies buried Venus, he read, the fair woman who has undone many a great man in fortune, honour, blessing and prosperity. He showed me a copper door in the floor. Here, he said, we could descend further if you would like to. I'm still following you, I said, and with that I went down the stairs. It was very dark, but the page quickly opened a little box in which was an ever-burning light. From this he lit one of the many torches that lay to hand. I was very scared, and asked him earnestly if he should be doing this. He answered, "Since the royal persons are still asleep, I have nothing to fear." Now I saw a rich bed, ready-made, hung about with fine curtains, of which he opened one, and there I beheld the Lady Venus, quite naked, for he also lifted the covers, lying there in such magnificence and beauty that I was paralysed. To this day I do not know whether it was a statue or a dead person lying there, for she was completely still, and I dared not touch her. Then she was covered up again, and the curtain was drawn. I still had her in my mind's eye, until I noticed a tablet behind the bed on which was written, "When the fruit of my tree has completely melted, I shall awake and be the mother of a king." I asked my page about the inscription, but he laughed and promised that I would soon find out. Then he extinguished the torch and we climbed up again. Now that I could see all the little doors better, I found that at each corner A small pyrite taper was burning, which I had not noticed before, since the fire was so bright that it looked much more like a jewel than a light. The tree must have been continually melting from the heat, yet it kept bringing forth more fruits. "Now," said the page, "learn what I have heard Atlas reveal to the king. When the tree has completely melted, the lady Venus will wake up again and be the mother of a king." As he was speaking, and perhaps was going to tell me more, little Cupid flew in. He was at first rather upset at our presence, but when he saw that we looked more dead than alive, he had to laugh. He asked me what spirit had led me here, to which I answered, trembling, that I had got lost in the castle and somehow ended up here, that the page had been looking for me everywhere and had finally found me, and that I hoped he would not hold it against me. "No, it is all right," said Cupid, "my nosy old father, but you could have easily paid me a nasty trick if you'd noticed this door. I must take better care of it." And with this, he put a strong padlock on the copper door, down through which we had climbed. I thanked God that he had not discovered us earlier, and my page was even gladder that I had thus helped him out. "I still can't let it go," said Cupid, "that you nearly stumbled across my dear mother." With that, he held the point of his arrow in one of the tapers until it was warm, then pricked me on the hand. I thought little of it at the time, but was happy that we had succeeded in coming through without further danger. Meanwhile, my companions had also got out of bed and were in the hall. I joined them there, making as though I had just got up. After Cupid had carefully locked everything up, he also joined us and made me show him my hand. There was still a little drop of blood there, which much amused him, and advised the others that they should look out for me. I would soon be growing old. We all wondered how Cupid could be so cheerful and gave no thought to the tragic events of yesterday, but he showed no sign of sorrow. In the meantime, our president had made herself ready for the journey. She entered all in black velvet, though still bearing her laurel branch, and all her maidens had laurel branches too. Since everything was now ready, the Virgin told us first to take a drink, then to get ready for the procession without delay. We were not long about it, but followed her out of the hall into the courtyard. Here the 6 coffins were standing, and my companion had no other thought than that the 6 royal persons were lying within. I could see right through the trick, but I still did not know what would be done with the others. By each coffin were 8 masked men. As soon as the music began, and it was such grave and tragic music that I was awestruck, the men lifted up the coffins, and we followed after as instructed, as far as the garden mentioned above. A wooden building was erected in the middle, with a splendid crown around the roof, standing on 7 columns. Inside were 6 open graves, with a stone by each, and in the centre a tall, round, hollow stone. The coffins were laid in these graves, silently and with much ceremony, and the stones were slid over them and sealed fast. The little chest, however, was laid in the central one. My companions were deceived by this, for they quite thought that the corpses of the dead were inside. On top of all was a great banner with the phoenix painted on it, perhaps the better to delude us. Here I had much to thank God for, that I had seen more than the rest. Now, after the burial was over, the Virgin stood up on the central stone and made a short oration. And not grudging future pains, should help the royal persons thus entombed to come to life again. Therefore, we were to rise forthwith and go with her to Olympus' tower, to fetch from there the proper and indispensable medicines. We readily agreed, and followed her through another little door as far as the waterfront. There were the same 7 ships, all empty, in which the maidens planted their laurel branches, and after they had distributed us in the 6 ships, they sent us on our way in the name of God and watched us until we were out of sight. Then they went back into the castle with all the guards. Each of our ships had a great banner and a special symbol. 5 of them had the 5 regular or platonic solids, 1 apiece, while mine, in which the Virgin also sat, bore the sphere. We sailed in a special order and had only 2 crewsmen each. In front went the little ship, in which I suspected the Moor lay, also containing 12 musicians who played very well. Its symbol was a pyramid. Then came abreast 3, in which we were, myself in the middle one. In the middle went the 2 finest and stateliest ships. They had no one in them, but were trimmed with many laurel branches, and their banners were the sun and moon. Lastly came a single ship, in which were 40 maidens. After passing over the lake, we came through a narrow channel to the sea itself, where all the sirens, nymphs and sea goddesses were awaiting us. A mermaid immediately came to us from them to bring us their gift and in honour of the wedding. It was a huge, precious set pearl whose like has never been seen, either in ours or in the new world, round and lustrous. Whose like has never been seen, either in ours or in the new world, round and lustrous. After the Virgin had graciously accepted it, the nymph asked her if we could anchor for a while and be an audience to their games, to which the Virgin also agreed. She had the 2 ships heave to in the centre, others make a pentagon around it. Then the nymphs swam round in a circle, singing with their lovely voices in the following song. On earth there's nothing better than fair and noble love, through which we are made godlike, and none does other harm. Therefore sing to the King, make the whole sea to resound. We ask you, answer us. Who has brought us to life? 'Tis love. Who has restored us grace? 'Tis love. From whence have we our birth? From love. What could lead us astray? No love. Who has begotten us? 'Twas love. Why did they give us suck? From love. What is our parents' due? Our love. Why are they patient so? From love. What overcometh all? 'Tis love. Can one find love as well? Through love. How can one do good work? In love. Who can unite the twain? 'Tis love. So sing ye all, echoing loud, in honour of love, which will increase unto our lords, the King and Queen. Their bodies are here, their souls are gone. And while we live, so God will grant, that as from us homage and love have sundered them with mighty power, so may we too, through flame of love, with joy unite them once again. This sorrow then, to greatest joy, though many thousand generations come, shall be transformed for all eternity. After they had finished this song, with its beautiful words and melody, I no more wondered at Ulysses for having stopped his companion's ears, for I thought myself the most unhappy of men, that nature had not made me an equally blissful creature. But the Virgin soon take her leave of them, and bade us sail away from there. Hence also the nymphs, after they had been presented, with a long red ribbon in recompense, broke ranks and scattered in the sea. At this time, I became aware that Cupid was also beginning to work on me, which was really not to my credit. But since to tell of my deception would be of no use to the reader, I will let it go at that. It was the very head wound which I had received in my dream in the first book. If any would be warned by me, let him not loiter around Venus's bed, for Cupid cannot abide that kind of thing. After a few hours, when we had sailed a good way in friendly conversation, we espied Olympus Tower. Then the Virgin ordered some cannons to be fired as a sign of our arrival. Immediately we saw a great white flag run up, and a little golden boat coming towards us. When it arrived, there was an old gentleman, the warder of the tower, with some halberdiers dressed in white, by whom we were welcomed as friends and thus led to the tower. This stood on a perfectly square island, surrounded by such strong and thick ramparts that I myself counted 260 steps as we passed through it. Beyond the rampart was a fine meadow with some gardens, in which grew strange fruits unknown to me, then a wall around the tower. The tower itself was just as if 7 round towers had been built together, but the central one was a little taller. They were all connected inside and had 7 stories. As we came up to the gate of the tower, they led us by the wall, a little off to the side. I could well see that it was so as to bring the coffins into the tower without our knowledge, but the others knew nothing of this. As soon as it was done, they took us into the lowest part of the tower. Although it was finely painted, we did not have much diversion here, since this was nothing else than a laboratory. We had to grind and wash herbs, gemstones and what-not, extracting the sap and essence, then put it in little bottles and hand them over to be preserved. Our Virgin was so industrious and organising. She knew how to keep each one fully employed. We had to drudge away on this island until we had done everything necessary for reviving the beheaded bodies. In the meantime, as I later learned, the 3 maidens were in the first room and were diligently washing the corpses. Finally, as we were almost finished with these preparations, they gave us nothing but some broth and a drink of wine, from which I could see that we were not here for our amusement. Moreover, when we had finished our day's work, each one had only a blanket spread on the floor, and we had to make the best of it. I was not much tempted to sleep, and so went out for a walk in the garden, coming eventually to the rampart. Since the skies were so clear, I could happily pass the time in contemplation of the stars. I accidentally came upon a great stone staircase, which led onto the rampart, and since the moon was shining very brightly, I was bold enough to go up and look a while over the sea, which was now utterly calm. Having such a good opportunity for astronomical contemplations, I discovered that on this very night there was a conjunction of planets, such as would not be seen again for a long time. After I had looked out to sea for a good while, and it being around midnight, as soon as it had struck 12, I saw the 7 flames coming from the distance over the sea until they reached the very top of the tower. This somewhat frightened me, for as soon as the flames had come to land, the wind began to make the sea very rough. The moon was hidden by clouds, and my pleasure ended in such fear that I scarcely had time to find the staircase again and get it back into the tower. Whether the flames now stayed there, or whether they went away again, I cannot say, for I would never have dared venture out in such darkness. So I lay on my blanket and fell asleep all the sooner, since in our laboratory there was also a fountain with a gentle murmuring sound. Thus the 5th day also ended with wonders.